The Eighth Amendment says you can keep somebody in the shoe until they become mentally ill, and then you have to take them out. So that's where we are right now. That was before Brown versus Plata. I think under Brown versus Plata, this question is going to have to be looked at again. But if you look at Europe, and we will toward the end of the class, where this notion of dignity has become a much more important source of public law values for prisons, you're getting questions asked there like, can a country deny prisoners the right to vote while they're in prison? The UK, while I was in Scotland for the year, was called on the carpet by the European Court of Human Rights for its blanket ban on prisoner voting. Now, of course, we have such a ban. There's no state in the United States in which prisoners can vote. Right? There's not even very many in which parolees can vote. And as you know, there's many where just having been convicted of a felony, even after you get released from prison, you don't automatically get your right to vote back. Right? So this is a question that in America is, we're talking about whether people have a right to their asthma medicine, not whether people have a right to vote. But once we go down that path of taking seriously this idea that prison punishment has to go along with respect for the dignity of the individual, you'd be surprised how quickly some of these seemingly utopian issues get raised. So I want to kind of stay with this issue of humanity for a moment, but switch to my second class lecture so I don't fall even further behind on capital punishment, but I'll be happy to take any of your questions about this. Let me try to get my other PowerPoint presentation up while we talk about that. Yes, please.
Jail versus prison.
Yes.
I understand kind of population differences, but what is the actual difference between jail?
Right, very important. So legally, the difference is that a jail has two functions: to hold people who have been accused of a crime that haven't been convicted, so-called pretrial detainees. Secondly, people have received, up until October 1st of this year, only those felons or misdemeanor convicts who had received, you could be sent to jail for up to a year. If they wanted to put you in, lock you up for longer than that, they had to send you to prison. That goes back to the founding of the state. So this is another reason why this is such a historic moment. Now, if you want to have a sort of bad nightmare about what Brown versus Plata will lead to, it's that having fought California's tendency to degrade and dehumanize prisoners in these giant warehouse prisons in California for the last 25 years, the lawyers for the prisoners, having won this victory, will now find it a Pyrrhic victory because all those prisoners will disappear into jails, where they will face the same degrading conditions, but in 100. It's sort of like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. You cut down the big enemy, but now there's 100 little enemies. And that could happen. And you're from some of these counties, so I'm not going to name names here, but there's some rather backward counties in the state when it comes to criminal justice, which have very bad jails, which don't recognize mental illness, don't train their correctional officers in modern practices, etc. You're going to get some people sentenced to like 20 years in jail because of realignment, because suddenly felons who would have gotten prison sentences are getting sentenced by county court judges to jail. And that could be truly horrendous. The flip side, though, is that counties have wide discretion under this realignment law to experiment with things like house arrest. Right? There's huge numbers of women in prison in California, for instance, with very young children, who almost certainly would be better off, and the community would be better off if they were in their home taking care of their kids, and we could find ways to make sure they weren't threatening their community there. Like, we could put an ankle bracelet on. There are other things we could do. So there's lots of opportunities there if counties will take a chance. And Governor Brown said very little about realignment yesterday, and it is this stealth policy. And I'm really afraid because nobody's really stepping up and trying to articulate a vision for what this should be about. But one thing he did say is that we believe that local government does a better job serving the community's real needs. And I think that's very true with criminal justice. When you get to the state level, this state is just too big to make judgments about crime threats. We're much better. Something that looks very alarming, kids with guns, for instance, and which happens a lot in places like Oakland and Richmond, and may not happen a lot in Kern County, for instance, raise different kinds of issues that may be dealt with in different ways. That kid may be carrying a gun, he's just afraid of other people that are carrying a gun in his milieu, and it may be that there are ways to neutralize that threat that involve addressing 75 individuals in a large city like Richmond or like Oakland, rather than incarcerating hundreds to try to put that fire out. So we're at a very interesting moment. I'm convinced that in 10 years we'll look back at this as either a huge missed opportunity to kind of reinvent what's a very discredited penal system, or a moment where we went from degrading and inhuman treatment to a truly abhorrent kind of accommodation of human rights violations. Okay, let's talk about the death penalty, because after all, that's the other sort of big punishment when people think about punishments. The truth is that the death penalty, as we'll see, is tiny, right? If mass incarceration is prison kind of on steroids, blown up from its traditional sort of small role in American penal culture to this outsized role, the death penalty is kind of gone the other way. It occupies this huge space in our imagination, but in fact has a relatively small footprint. Now, my title, and I'm staying with this theme of humanity, because I think it's a theme that can help us throughout the course, because it really is the problem we face in contemporary society, is not just how to punish people, but how to punish people in ways that are in accord with our commitment to humanity or a sense of humanity. So, can we execute people humanely? For a very long time, up until quite recently, the answer seemed to be yes. So there was this big wave of human rights interest, as I said, at the middle to the end of the 18th century, that produced, among other things, our constitutional prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment. And the movement against the death penalty, which began then, in many ways was the first human rights movement in the world. It came before the movement to abolish slavery. It came before the movement to abolish the serfdom-like status of women in most societies. It's really the first kind of abolitionist movement that gets going. And it had a huge impact. As we'll see, the death penalty went from being a penalty that was applicable to many different felony crimes to, in most parts of the world, especially Europe and North America, Australia, Latin America, only homicide was typically punished by the death penalty by the middle of the 19th century. And that's a big change. But executing murderers turned out to be something that the culture was much more comfortable with than executing burglars and thieves and even arsonists or rapists. And indeed, in 1948, after World War II produced the next great wave of human rights consciousness, right? In the aftermath of the Holocaust, there was this global consciousness about human rights when people realized what had happened in places like Auschwitz. And one of the immediate products of that was the Universal Charter of Human Rights. Is it convention or charter? Somebody help me. Somebody Google it. I don't want to keep getting it wrong. But in any event, the Universal Declaration, there it is, of Human Rights, which we are a signatory, I believe one of the first signatories to, added a new prohibition to the cruel and unusual punishment ban. No one shall be subjected to torture or to inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. That's Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Very similar language in Article 5 of the European Convention. Now, two quick observations. One, under the Eighth Amendment, it's pretty clear that the death penalty was not considered, certainly by the founders, to be cruel and unusual punishment. We know that because they spoke under the conditions on which somebody could be executed for treason in the Constitution itself. Somewhat more surprisingly, this new human rights treaty that we signed and much of the world signed after World War II, even though it talked about no one should be subjected to torture or to inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment, did not view the death penalty as any of those, as torture or inhuman or degrading. And what you see there is one of the reasons why that was so clear they're hanging a Nazi war criminal under the jurisdiction of the Nuremberg Court. And there was a wave of executions in Europe after World War II as Nazi officials and also collaborators in various European countries. Some countries that hadn't had the death penalty for a century returned to the death penalty to execute its traitors as they saw it, as well as some common criminals. So for a long time after World War II, it looked like the death penalty in its reduced form as a punishment for serious homicides and other serious crimes like treason or war crimes might indeed survive. It was practiced in Europe, it was practiced all over the United States, and there was only a very few abolitionist countries around the world. That changed very dramatically beginning in the 1970s. This is a pretty contemporary one of map. And what you see there's essentially the only countries that actually use the death penalty today are the ones in, how do we describe that, flesh-colored. The United States, and Alaska's up there, even though it doesn't actually have the death penalty, so it's kind of unfair because it adds this huge death penalty zone to North America that doesn't actually have it. Big part of Eastern Africa, obviously the Middle East and near Asia, and then Asia itself is the last, perhaps greatest redoubt of the death penalty. Guys, thank you. This is a big difference, right? So we've gone from a world in which there was consensus that the death penalty was compatible with human rights to a world where it is very contested, and the trend has moved very decisively in favor of abolition. Now, we will study in depth this movement toward global abolition. It leaves the United States apparently in uncomfortable company. Even though we don't execute nearly as many people as we used to, even a few years ago. This is 2009, I believe. Having executed 52 people, we were the fifth biggest executor on the planet. China, it's unfathomable. We don't know how many people they've executed, and they don't release that information. But we know it's a lot. Iran is a huge executor. If you want to see somebody executed on the web, there's a lot of Iranian photography and videos. They often execute people 9 or 10 at a time, hanging, and for crimes other than murder, including offenses against God, which basically mean opposing the current government. Nonetheless, there are other countries, Iraq, which of course is in the middle of a severe civil war until recently, or may still be, Saudi Arabia. So we're not alone in the world, but we're not in the typical group of economically advanced democracies. The only other economically advanced democracy in this list is Japan. And Japan's a very interesting case. They don't use the death penalty very often. They take a very long time to do it. It's a very interesting and distinctive death penalty, but Japan, for a variety of reasons, holds on to it. When we look at the United States, our first tendency is to think we're a very solidly death penalty country. The blue states are the states that have abolished. By the way, it would look a little bluer if we added Illinois, which my home state, which did abolish the death penalty this year. And one of the most interesting phenomena, we'll come back to this, Illinois, New Jersey, New Mexico, these are all states where legislatures abolished the death penalty, which is very striking. I mean, Europe, which has abolished the death penalty completely, there's only one country, I think Belarus, that hasn't decided for sure yet whether it's on board with abolishing the death penalty, but every other country has, despite the fact that when you do polling in those countries, the majority of people support the death penalty, because basically those decisions were made above the level of the electorate. They were made by elites, shall we say, legal elites, political elites. So when you see a very responsive institution like a legislature getting rid of the death penalty, that's pretty interesting. We'll talk about why that's happening in a moment. But the point here is that when you look at this, you might think we are a homogeneously pro-death penalty country, or at least we're into the death penalty. But what you realize when you look more carefully at the data, and basically this data comes from the Death Penalty Information Center report that I put up on the website for you, but that's also available. I guess I put a link up for you. And this one I think comes also from the DPIC website. One shows executions obviously in the last 2 years. The other is kind of interesting. Shows executions from 1930 on, and then since 1977. Since 1977 is the period that the death penalty, what we call the modern period of the death penalty, after the 1972 Supreme Court case Furman versus Georgia, which declared all then existing death penalties unconstitutional, and a limited kind of death penalty came back. And we'll study that process. But here's what's really striking. When you look at the jurisdictions with the most executions since 1930, you see jurisdictions like New York, California, Illinois, Ohio, big industrial, highly populated states, as well as the states you might associate with the death penalty today, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, southern states. And the difference is that in the 30s, the death penalty was practiced all over America with relative equal vigor. And New York had the most people, so not surprisingly, it executed the most people. Since 1977, we've had a very different kind of death penalty. Over half of all the people executed since 1977 have been executed in 3 states, Texas, Virginia, and Oklahoma. And so really what I would suggest to you is that we've got 3 different kinds of states in America in terms of the death penalty. We have abolitionist states that have gotten rid of it completely. We have states that have not so much a death penalty as a death row. There are states that want the death penalty on the book and actually sentence people to death, but for a variety of complicated reasons don't actually execute people, or don't execute people very often. And then there are states, and Texas and Virginia and Oklahoma are the obvious ones, where there really is a death penalty. They do execute people, etc. So part of the future of the death penalty in America has to do with how these states are going to stack up. If we end up as we are now, with a lot of states having a largely symbolic death penalty and a few states really executing people, it'll probably be with us, I would predict, for the rest of my life, or at least a very long time, which I hope is the same thing for a while. If, on the other hand, you get this Illinois process, and we'll talk about California in a few minutes, but if you get more of these symbolic death penalty states, and I don't mean by symbolic because people are on death row, and occasionally they do get executed because the odds are low. If more of those states slip into the abolitionist category, and over time you end up with a death penalty that's limited to the Confederacy and is highly concentrated in 3 states, I think then you begin to, even the Supreme Court, a cautious Supreme Court might say that that's cruel and unusual, at least unusual. Here's the trend line in terms of support for the death penalty. This does reflect a real change. 1994, the year 3 strikes was passed, the year Richard Allen Davis murdered Polly Klaas. You've got 80% of Americans supporting the death penalty. Only 16% call themselves opposed to it. That's doubled now to 35% opposed to it. Still a big gap between those who say that they support it, those who say that they're opposed to it. As you probably know, when you play around with the questions a little bit, and specifically when you say to people, the alternative to the death penalty will be life without parole, it goes to about 50-50. I mean, it's kind of it's a draw, more or less. So that's where we are. Why is that happening? There's at least 3 reasons, and we'll explore this in more detail. By the way, it's not just opinion, it's actually practice. It's the number of death sentences in 2000 compared to 2011, executions in 2000 versus 2011, and states with, again, there's even a drop in the number of states with the death penalty. So quite a distinctive trend. I think 3 reasons. 1, lower crime rates. Right now, I hope some of you noticed this in the newspaper the other day, homicide for the first time in 40 years is not one of the top 15 causes of death of adults in the United States, which is good news for everybody. I mean, in my childhood was when the homicide rate in America was beginning to go through the roof. It tripled between when I was born in 1959 and, say, 1979 when I was a Cal undergraduate. And California was the site of a lot of that. There were so many different serial killers in the state in the 70s that there ended up being 3 different freeway killers at one point. That's having an effect. People are less afraid of crime, I would argue. Secondly, there's been a whole series of exonerations of prisoners, some on death row, some not on death row, that have highlighted the fact that the death penalty is a very final penalty. You can't go back on it, and that there's some uncertainty sometimes about whether somebody's actually guilty. One of the paradoxes, which we'll study, is that you might think that because of the death penalty, cases that are eligible for the death penalty, there's so much attention to them, so much police resources, etc., that those would surely not be the cases where you get wrongful convictions. And that's what I long believed. But actually, there's some reasons to think it's the opposite. That when something really atrocious happens, when a child is raped and murdered, a police officer is gunned down in cold blood, etc., there's a sense that we've got to get somebody for this crime that can sometimes push the police to cut corners, to take chances, to try to convict somebody, or to turn to jailhouse informants and other people who are not reliable sources. Now, a lot of these conundrums of the death penalty today in America are, I think, nicely captured in this odd little case that I've given you as a recommended reading. It's up on the website. This was decided, as you can see, just before Christmas here in Marin County. We are at a very interesting moment with lethal injection, which is the main form of, I should say, with death penalty generally in California and with lethal injection in particular. We haven't executed anyone in California since 2006. Actually, several times ago when I taught this course, the last execution happened like the first week of class, so it was a very powerful reminder that those things do happen. But it's been now 6 years, which means that we might see this could be the end of California's death penalty, maybe that nobody will ever be executed again, for reasons we'll talk about in a few minutes. On the other hand, so many people have finished their appeals process now in over 6 years without an execution that there is now a huge backlog of people who have no appeals left, which means that if these lower court orders that are essentially holding California to not being able to execute anyone because of uncertainty about the procedures for using lethal injection, you could end up having an execution a week for a couple of years, and that would be very interesting. I mean, I think just sociologically, that would not be something I'd want to see, but I mean, it would pose a very interesting question. How would we stomach that? How would we feel about a weekly event at San Quentin of that sort? It might become normal, might help routinize us to the death penalty, or it might generate an Occupy San Quentin moment. It would be interesting to see. I don't know that we'll get to that. Now, there's a couple things. First of all, notice that lethal injection, which is now the mechanism for the death penalty everywhere in the United States. Some states have preserved some other traditional options. And by the way, if you were sentenced to death back when the firing squad or electrocution or the gas chamber was the mode of execution, you actually can insist on it. And some prisoners have, just to kind of put the state to the extra expense and degradation, frankly, of having to electrocute somebody or God forbid put them in the gas chamber. We've now dismantled our gas chambers. I don't know quite what would happen if somebody insisted on it. We may not get there. But the lethal injection is a very interesting example because for some people who are death penalty opponents, support for the death penalty is just an example of a kind of barbarous indifference to the kind of pain and suffering we were talking about a few minutes ago. And yet look at lethal injection. The whole point of that as a means of execution, and it represents a century of trying to technologically make the death penalty softer and softer and softer, is to both reduce the pain and reduce the sense of this as kind of an extraordinary moment of suffering, right? That looks like a place that people would lie down to get relief. And even compared to asphyxiation by gas or electrocution, it produces an image that is much more gentle. Indeed, some victims have complained that basically when they look at somebody expiring from lethal injection, it looks like somebody going to sleep. Where is the drama? Where is the catharsis that they might have been expecting? So it's paradoxical. David Garland argues in his recent book that we ought to view the death penalty not as a kind of a weird throwback to the archaic past, but as a highly adapted institution that has fit in very closely to our modern sensibilities and even indeed our human rights values, right? I would say that supporters of the death penalty and opponents of it are not, in America especially, are not on opposing sides of a human rights gulf. They're both animated by a sense of human rights, because part of human rights is a concern with the victim, and part of human rights is a concern about the human that's being the victim of the death penalty, right? So there's some equilibrium there. Most recently, you might think, once you go to the lethal injection, who can complain? I mean, you might complain that you're being killed, but surely you can't complain that it's being done in a cruel and unusual manner. In fact, advocates for death row inmates, including my colleagues at Berkeley's Law's Death Penalty Clinic, have made a very powerful argument that the way lethal injection works can be cruel and unusual. The typical lethal injection protocol calls for a 3-drug injection method. The first drug is essentially a barbiturate, the kind that gets you high. It basically makes you feel very nice and relaxed, and eventually you go to sleep typically on that. And if you've had a high enough dose of it, you will stop breathing, and eventually your heart will stop beating. That can take 40 or 50 minutes. On the way to that, you may start drooling, and foam will start coming out of your mouth. It can be kind of unpleasant for the people watching it. But by and large, you go to sleep. And that doesn't seem to, I mean, nobody has argued that that is cruel and unusual. The second drug is the more interesting one in a way, and this is something called sodium thiopental, and it's essentially a paralytic agent. This is very commonly used in surgery too, because they want you not only to be unconscious, but also not to move while you're being operated on. Now, why is that necessary in lethal injection? Because we're not trying to save your life, we're trying to kill you. What's there to make sure you don't move too much during the execution? It's in a sense there for the comfort of the observers, not for your comfort. The final drug is what kills you. This would be the pancuronium bromide, and that essentially stops your heart. I guess it's a form of curare, is that curare? And essentially, here's the problem. Some people aren't knocked out by the barbiturate. And this actually happens in surgery. There's some clinical cases of this that are pretty horrifying. I've never had surgery, but this is not the kind of thing you want to think about right before you go into it. Some people don't actually go to sleep, but because they've been put under this paralytic, they can't signal to the doctor, hey, I'm still awake. And so they go through the whole surgery wide awake. Could be kind of scary. The pain killing may still be working, but the anxiety and trauma are pretty powerful. The complaint is that, or the worry is this. Let's say you get the barbiturates, and they don't put you to sleep. Then you get the paralytic, and you can't move, you can't signal that you're not unconscious. Then you get the pancuronium bromide, which stops your heart, which would be an excruciatingly painful experience. Now, in Bays versus Reeves, the U.S. Supreme Court 3 years ago essentially decided not to decide whether lethal injection was cruel and unusual. What they held was that there was not enough evidence presented about Oklahoma's protocol to prove that it was cruel and unusual. But they left open the possibility that it might be. And as a result, each state has gone through its own, that wants to execute people, has gone through its own battle about how to deal with this. Some states have decided to go for a one-drug method, the barbiturates, that take a long time to kill you, but if you keep giving them more barbiturates, they'll eventually die, and it's not painful. California, for reasons best known to itself, has decided to stick with the 3 drugs. And what's interesting in this case is that basically California tried to kind of rush through an execution staying with these protocols because it would take a lot of time to prove that any new protocol was safe, and they thought it would be quicker to stay with this. Partly they were motivated by the fact that they had a very limited amount of the lethal drug, especially the sodium pentothal that they need to do this kind of execution. These things, this would be funny, but it wasn't so safe. They have expiration dates, and it wouldn't be safe to use them after their expiration date, even though the purpose of the drug as it's being used by the state is to kill you. I mean, think about that later. That's not obviously why that's curious. But nonetheless, because of that, the state of California actually had to rush through some executions and got basically lashed at by the court. And in this case, the court was particularly aggrieved, and this is the quote here,